We are in this little space off the side of the ICW. So you can see the green marker over there. We're in this little oxbow area and we have very little water under our keel. These are one of those times where we could wake up on the ground in the middle of the night. We are almost at very low tide. It's only supposed to drop a couple more inches, not feet, just inches, which should still be fine. And then it'll start going up. But we needed to, it's got a 4 to 5 foot tidal swing. And so we needed to put out enough scope to compensate for when that rises 5 feet, because we get the afternoon thunderstorms and we'll be at that higher tide during that time. Always an adventure. Todd's putting out the sunshade in the front because it's going to be another warm one. We've been traveling with our sunshade up in the back. The tide has come up. It's just grass. No more beaches and dirt. The first thing that we have to do is get to North Carolina. We have to be there by the 1st of August so we can get the boat ready to be left for a couple of months while we go to our son's wedding and go take care of some health stuff in Alaska for Todd and Abigail. That's our purpose for what we're doing right now, and because we tore our sails crossing from Bimini, we are on the ICW. We are headed up to St. Mary's, Georgia, where we will receive a couple of packages and get to work on fixing our sails and hopefully be able to go offshore and get up to North Carolina faster. Where are you going?
I'm ready to bring the dinghy up.
Are you gonna cook us dinner?
Hungry enough that I could eat those.
Not many of those around. That's where we're at. Tide's high. There is zero wind. Sun is just starting to come up. So what's going on?
Just tighten up the friction plate. See if I can get it up off.
On the windlass?
Yeah.
We're stuck good. This anchorage is awesome from that perspective. If we'd had big winds, we wouldn't have had to worry. But now we're struggling to get the anchor up. We're hoping we can make 42 miles. If not, we'll make about 22. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like you can make it to here or you have to go all the way. So we're starting really early this morning. Alright, there's a little fog this morning, so our windows are kind of a mess. Need to get those wiped down so we can see better. Sitting is enjoying her perch. Bye! Nice little anchorage.
All right. Kind of going up a river, as Tammy told you earlier.
What?
But it's a lot of mist and stuff out here, but it has that smell.
yuck. What is that stink?
Swampy smell?
Yeah, it's very yucky.
Ugh.
Nasty, nasty, nasty.
This big barge thing coming down here with what looks like some cranes on it. Fairly narrow area here, as far as the channel goes anyway, but he's as tall as a mast. That crane up there, right in the very back, driving it with a Suzuki motor. Two of them. So this is how driving through most of the ICW is. Calm, peaceful day today, which is nice, I guess. It's going to be a little warm, but I don't have to fight any headwinds. I got a lot of prettiness around me. Got all the nice, beautiful trees and stuff on one side. The other side, I got the cool houses, docks, and just sitting here steering with my feet. I could try the autopilot, I guess. This is a pretty straightaway. Our autopilot's been having some issues in the ICW in that it wanders back and forth a little too much instead of a straight line. Can't quite figure out why it's having such a struggle just going straight.
That sunshade working for you?
So far,
So we're still a couple hours from the San Pablo Atlantic Boulevard that crosses the ICW. It's just south of St. John's River in Florida. It's 65 feet tall, so we don't have any problems with that. But it's a really narrow opening, and they say the currents can get upwards of 6 knots. Obviously, we haven't been there. We don't know what it exactly looks like, but on the Active Captain, there's some pretty crazy reviews. One of them said that they had a standing wave under the bridge that caught the bow of their boat and pushed them to port. Looking at that, we didn't want to have a problem. We did not want to be going into it when the current was coming towards us. So we've planned our whole day around this bridge. As a matter of fact, yesterday was a short day, just so that today we could time this bridge so that we will be going with the current as we go through it.
you know, as great a footage as it would be, I'm sorry folks, but we really just want to make bridges easy. There are things that tear masts off and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want that kind of drama in my life, right?
So we use Aqua Maps in the ICW because of the special option it has. We like being able to see the depths. It's like US, I don't know, geological surveys or something option. Looks great. Helps us. Doing the ICW in Florida on the East Coast is so different than doing the ICW in the Gulf Coast. I'm not sure it's so much different in Florida, but definitely over along New Orleans to Texas, where we spent the most time in the ICW. Like, we saw one tug yesterday, and that's it. Like, this is, the commercial traffic just isn't here in this part of the ICW the way it is in Texas and Louisiana. All right, we're coming up to the bridge. looking okay. Well, I have to say I like it when it's a non-event.
Yep. Well, we're still in the current. We can see the eddies.
Right?
We're doing 5.7 knots right now.
So we did get some
So
current.
we've got a boost of speed of about a knot for us. On a windy day, this could be horrible.
Especially if it was going against us.
Already like 3 times or so in here, I've felt me hit the rudder stops, which means I've had to correct that much to stay straight with the eddies, which they're not horrible, but they are there and they turn the boat.
So a lot of you have asked us how we decide what we're doing and where we're going and where we anchor and all of that jazz. We rely a lot on Navionics. Navionics is easy to use. It gives us easy information as far as what the tides are doing, what the currents are doing.
Well, we had some current in the ICW going from Texas to Pensacola, but they weren't that bad most of the time.
Yeah, not this strong. I mean, we're seeing currents up to like 4.5, 5 knots. Right now, we've got that going with us, which is good. We run Navionics charts on our chart plotter. Todd and I have them on our phone. When we're using it where we really need to know what the depths are, we use the sonar charts on Navionics to kind of give us the contours of the bottom, which has something called Active Captain. So it marks all these little places where there's anchorages and hazards and things like that. And you can click on them and get information. You can read reviews. We try and leave reviews in the places that we stopped because sometimes we've found that nobody has left a review in like 4 years, and that's not helpful. We want to know, has it shoaled in? Is it still the same? Things like that. That's kind of the tools that we're using as we go along here. In the Bahamas, same thing. We used Aquamaps to kind of look at routes. They've got some really good route planning in Aquamaps for the Bahamas, but we still would double check that with the sonar charts on Navionics. Sometimes they're really different, and then you're kind of like, I wonder which one is right. And then you talk to your friends and you find out other people's experiences. It just can be hit and miss. So luckily, in the ICW, it's mostly mud, and in the Bahamas, it is most often sand. I don't think we touched bottom in the Bahamas at all, did we?
No, we never ran aground in the Bahamas.
So
we were a lot more careful if it was areas that suggested that there was coral on the bottom. We were really, really careful. But most of the places where we were going into anchorages all said they were sand.
Yeah. So we did okay over there. We didn't have a challenge, but it could be quite stressful. So I hope that these maps and things like that will be helpful to you. Okay, we are crossing the St. John River, which goes up to Jacksonville. We actually have to go upriver a little bit, kind of at a diagonal, and we have a current coming down the river at 2.5 knots. So it's got to slow down to, what are we doing, 2.9?
Yeah, we're doing 2.9.
And what are our RPMs?
1,073. And right now we got 3 chargers on. 3 of our chargers that do roughly 25 amps a piece. So with that and the solar and the battery drain, we're actually probably pulling about 120 amps out of or 120 amps to run the motor. So that's not too bad. and we're maintaining 2.8 knots, I think.
The electric motor is not designed for being used this way for speed. It'll get you there, but you're not going to go there fast. So, yep, we have to be careful. We have to watch, make sure that there's no boats on the AIS coming up and down so we have enough time to get across without having any issues. So we're down to almost 2 knots. This is where a sail might come in handy to get across here. We have a 6-knot breeze on our beam at about 90 degrees, but we don't have a sail to use. We've pulled the sails down because they have tears in them that we're working on. So there we go.
Doing pretty good. We're picking up speed again. 4.4 knots. We got down to 1.5. And I'm pulling 51 amps right out of the battery. But we still have 96% left on our battery, so that's pretty good. It's good management for all I'm concerned. You know, the generator quits in the middle of that. Leaves me plenty of power to get across if I need it. Right?
Yep. Electric motors are just a different beast.
Got to manage them differently. Got to think differently.
Yeah. These are some nice public boat ramps. Dude, floating docks. Okay, so today's excitement, or the first excitement we're going to have, it's a railroad bridge. There's nobody manning the railroad bridge. It's supposed to be open, but it automatically shuts when there's a train coming. And there does not seem to be any way to find out what the train schedule is. And from the reviews on Active Captain, it closes without notice. Like no lights, no buzzing, no noises to tell you that there is going to be a train coming and it's going to close. So several people in the reviews have gotten caught as they're going through it as it starts to close. Like, terrifying. We do have a current with us today. It's actually pretty strong. Says it's a 1.5 knots.
We're only pulling 8 amps out of the batteries because the solar's giving us all the rest. So the generator's not on. This is the kind of motoring that you'd like to have with an electric motor. If you had this all the time, it would be way cool.
Yeah, it's only, what, 600 amp draw? Or not draw, 600 RPMs?
Yeah, 600 RPMs. And we're going 3.5 knots. So, hey, I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah, that's really, really good. But we may have to, or we may choose to, try and motor through this railroad bridge as fast as possible so we don't get caught in it. Alright, here it comes. We have a tall bridge and a swing bridge right behind it. Not a lot of room to work with if there's a problem. It is really low tide. There's only 2.5 feet under our keel. See how low that tide is. Alright, we sure hope this thing stays still. Alright, I think we can safely say we've made it. Man, the tide is super low.
Right?
So today we are headed to St. Mary's Boat Services. We have been given a mooring ball to use from some friends there. And we're going to try and fix these sails. They have received our packages. And we will be figuring out how to put everything back together again. But It's up a river that is very windy and shallow, and we need to be arriving up there at high tide, which is at like 8 o'clock tonight, but we think that it's high enough at 6. We waited to leave till 1 o'clock in the afternoon so that we could time the tides. Doing this in the ICW is way different than out in the Bahamas. But even the Bahamas, like current cut, we had to time that too. Like, this is just part of boat life, I guess. So I have to say, being out here without the generator running is wonderful. It's super quiet. You can't hear the motor at all. We've got plenty of power coming from solar right now and the current running with us. So this place smells terrible. I've also read that about this area on Active Captain. There's some mooring balls here. There's some anchoring. We're coming up to another river, the St. Mary's River, that we need to go across and up to get where we're going. So we timed everything so that we wouldn't have to stop here. We were afraid there weren't be any mooring balls available, but there's lots of them. But with it being 4th of July weekend, we thought it could be really busy. I didn't want to risk it.
I'm trying to say that this probably isn't a destination stop for people with boats to come for the weekend.
I don't think I wouldn't come here. Yuck. It's loud and stinky. Alright, so we've got some shrimping boats along here. And it looks like there's a marina coming up. Nice little marina with floating docks. Well, it looks like there's a train going by. We could have gotten in the way of. Super glad that we did not run into that train. Doesn't look like we're moving very fast. But what are we doing?
4.5 knots.
Crazy. And you've hardly got the motor on.
We're speed demons, man. Can't you see my hair blowing back? I'm getting bugs in my teeth. Well, we're doing 750 RPMs. We are pulling like 30 amps. But that's just so that I can have some form of steerage.
Because the current's going so fast.
Current's probably going 3 knots. I don't know what it is. You know what it is better than I do, but it's pretty heavy.
What Todd's not telling you is we're trying to slow down. Because we need to be going up this river, the North River, to St. Mary's boat services at high tide, which is 2 hours from now. And it says right now we're going to get there in an hour. So the tide is rising, and theoretically it's risen enough for it to not be a problem. But we shall see.
Hey, hot puppy. Hey, hot puppy.
There's a bunch of boats on the moorings. I think we're headed over that direction a little bit. But we're not sure yet.
Hi.
Alright, well, we're anchored. That was stressful.
We're anchored. Kind of sketchy. We're in a curve, a wide spot on a curve of a river.
But we're not on the curve. We're in the straightaway.
Yeah, barely.
That is apparently what we're supposed to be mooring to.
No, it was pretty stressful, you know. That's the hard part, I guess, about never having done this particular mooring ball before. You don't know what to expect, and I couldn't get it up out of the water more than like 6 inches. I mean, I pulling as hard as I could, almost pulled the boat hook apart, and I couldn't get it high enough to even come close to clipping our thing on the boat. So that's how we missed it the first time. We were going a little too fast for the current, but it wouldn't lift up. And the second time around, we hovered in place for a good long time. Tammy held the boat in place, and I couldn't lift it up, Finally, we moved forward and dropped anchor and drifted back to where it was right alongside the boat. And I tried to lift it from there, even walking to the front of the boat with it. And, well, we got it out of the water a foot, maybe.
Maybe.
So that one didn't work. So we had to pull anchor and come around in the river a little bit further up and anchor in a wide spot of the river, which is a little sketchy because the tide swings here are 5 to 7 feet, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're high tide right now. So who knows, maybe at low tide in the middle of the night, we'll be thrown off onto the floor as our boat is doing that, right? And we go, oops. Catastrophic failure.
The nice thing is that our boat is well built and solid, so we know it won't break if it gets tipped a little bit. It's pretty.
It is pretty.
And there's a nice breeze to keep the bugs away. What are you talking about? You think there's an alligator out there?
Is it ready to go back on the boat?
Well, I think the leech line is rebuilt.
Oh, we're pretty much low tide here.
Well, it's starting to calm down. How long have we been sitting here now, dear?
Like 40 minutes.
Holy moly, that's a lot of water!